Shabbat Shalom. I'm Cantor David Prozer from Kehillat Bet HaMidrash, Kempsville Conservative Synagogue, and this is our Torah portion explanation for Shabbat of July 11th, 2020, the 19th of Tammuz, 5780. As usual, we thank Rabbi Avram Kogan, Rabbi Joseph Prauser, Rabbi Michael Gold, Rabbi Joyce Newmark, Rabbi Adam Rosenbaum, Rabbi Daniel Goldfarb, and the United Synagogue Torah Sparks series for their various teachings and publications on this week's Parsha. This week, Shabbat, July 11th, 2020, we read the Parsha of Pinchas from the book of Bamidbar. The Parsha begins on page 918 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 686 of the Hertz. At the end of last week's Parsha, Balak, we read how Pinchas, son of Eleazar, grandson of Aharon, in a moment of zealous outrage, slew an Israelite man and a Midianite woman who crossed directly in front of Moshe and the elders gathered at the tent of meeting to enter his tent with her for sexual purposes. Pinchas's actions put a stop to a plague that killed 24,000 Israelites. This week's Parsha opens with its namesake Pinchas receiving a divine reward, a hereditary priesthood and permanent covenant of peace that will be passed down to his priestly descendants in recognition of his zeal in summarily executing the Israelite man and his Midianite paramour. The brazen couple is named here for the first time. They are Zimri ben Salu from the tribe of Shimon and Cosbi bat Zur, a Midianite princess. Moshe is commanded to assail the Midianites and defeat them for their deceptive and corrupting influence on the Israelites by their women. We are now near the end of the 40 years of traveling through the wilderness. A detailed census of the Israelite population is carried out by clans of each of the 12 tribes to be used in apportioning tribal shares in the promised land, a process that is addressed immediately after the census. The final number of males over the age of 20, not counting the tribe of Levi, is 601,730, slightly fewer than the last census 40 years earlier. The size of each territory is determined by population. The location is to be determined by lot. The tribe of Levi is an exception. Allotting the land properly sparks a moral and legal crisis. 5 sisters, the daughters of Zelophehad from the tribe of Manasseh, approach Moshe. They protest the laws of inheritance, which provided only for male heirs. The sisters explained that Zelophehad left no male heirs, and his property will be lost, absorbed by the tribe, if his daughters are not permitted to inherit it. Moshe seeks divine guidance, and God instructs him to grant the 5 sisters inheritance rights, further establishing this test case as a binding precedent, showing that in the absence of male heirs, daughters may inherit their father's property. Beyond the narrow purview of this case, the passage is early confirmation of the need for interpretation and evolution of biblical law. as well as a milestone in the legal enfranchisement of the women of Israel. Family inheritance matters are followed immediately by the question of succession in national leadership. Moshe is informed that he will die in the wilderness before reaching the land of Canaan. God tells Moshe to ascend Mount Avarim. From that vantage point, he will be able to see the promised land before he dies. He asks God to provide a successor, and so Yehoshua, Joshua, Asher Ruach Bo, a man in whom is spirit, is appointed and presented to the people of Israel. The rest of the Parsha is devoted to the daily sacrifices, the festival calendar, and the sacrificial offerings associated with those sacred observances. The readings in this last section should sound familiar to regular shul goers, as they contain the Torah Mafter readings for those days: Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, and all Yomim Tovim. Most congregations leave one Torah scroll rolled to this section year-round to be ready for the Mafter readings on these days as they occur. The Haftorah for this Shabbat is from the book of Jeremiah, verses 1:1 to 2:3, beginning on page 968 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 710 of the Hertz. This Haftorah is not connected to today's Parsha by theme. Rather, it was chosen as the first of 3 prophetic readings of admonition for the 3 weeks that precede Tisha B'Av. After this cycle of 3 readings warning about the consequences of sin, and after Tisha B'Av, we begin a cycle of 7 Haftorot of consolation, followed by readings connected to the themes of the holy days of the New Year. Thus, a major liturgical shift begins this week, initiating a period when the Haftorot relate thematically not to each weekly Torah reading, but to our religious calendar. The choice of readings from Jeremiah is probably owing to the tradition that he was the author of the Book of Lamentations, which is read on the eve of Tisha B'Av. Jeremiah was born of a priestly family about the year 650 BCE. He witnessed the fall of Nineveh and the annihilation of the Assyrian Empire, the death of Josiah, Judah's righteous king, and lived through 2 sieges of Jerusalem, with the destruction of the Jewish state and the consequent transportation of the greater portion of the people to the rivers of Babylon. He lived a martyr's life and died a martyr's death. For the greater portion of his career, he was one man against a whole nation. He proclaimed the divine message fearlessly to ruler, noble, priest, and people alike. The Haftorah presents the opening passages of the book of Jeremiah, in which he is called as a messenger of God. His proclamation of God's word is reinforced by 2 visionary omens that introduce the themes of divine providence and imminent doom. The Haftorah closes with the prophetic message that God will recall Israel's past devotion, accounting it in the nation's favor. This results in a prophecy of hope and protection based on past loyalty. Although not in this particular Haftorah, Jeremiah's message to his despairing brethren in Babylon has been guidance for millennia of our people living in diaspora. Seek the welfare of the city wherein ye dwell, and pray unto the Lord for it, for in its welfare shall be your peace. This message has been of immeasurable influence in the civic life of Jews throughout the world. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, and we are happy to announce that this week we will be reading Torah and Haftorah live from our KBH sanctuary as we resume limited seating services. Shabbat Shalom.